Rebecca, it is so great to be with you.
Thanks for having me.
So I have to tell you, I mentioned to my wife, Ursula, I said, hey, so have you ever heard of Rebecca Minkoff? And she goes, yes, why? I said, so I'm going to have her on the podcast. And she
Oh
goes,
my gosh.
shut up.
Why isn't she
I
joining you right now?
I know she should be. We live on a ranch. She's taking care of all of our animals, our chickens, our all
Love
the
it.
things. I
I
should
love
have
it.
her in here though. But in fact, I tell her to come say hi. But she goes, "Oh my god, I love her bags. I've always wanted a Rebecca Minkoff bag." I'm like, "Why haven't you told me that? I'm sure we can add that to the Christmas list or whatever." But anyway, so you have a super fan in our house. Like she
I love
screamed, she
that.
freaked out. So
Oh, I love that. Well, tell her I said hello and thank you for being a fan. It's
yeah.
great.
I will. As I'm been getting to know you and watching your interviews and reading articles about you, like your story, and I told you this before we started recording, it's as fascinating as it is inspiring. And so I'd love to start at the point where you went to your dad, right? It was 2001, I believe. Correct me if I got the details wrong. 2001, you're 26 years old. You're broke. You're deciding between being a waitress and a bartender, and you go to your dad to ask for advice. And what does he tell you? What happens from there?
I really went to him, I think when I went to him for advice / money, that was in 2000, end of 2004.
Okay.
And that was after I was unsuccessfully running my clothing line. When I say unsuccessful, I was going into debt. So I was spending more to make the clothing that I was making in revenue. And so I actually went to him to loan me some more money because he had co-signed on a credit card that he didn't pay off or wouldn't pay off, but it got me the credit card, and that's what I was like living on.
Got it.
And so he's like, I don't even, he's like, I don't have faith that you're going to figure out how to pay this down. I'm not going to give
Wow.
you any more money. So he said, call your brother. He might be able to help you. And streamline your finances, figure out how to make money. He's really smart, give him a ring. So that was kind of the beginning of today, what we call the Rebecca Minkoff brand. Cause my brother, stupid or not, signed on board.
Yeah. Well, I'd say smart now. Now, your brother is Yuri. Is he younger or older brother?
He's older.
Older brother. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And so he signs off, and then, well, how many years or how long had you been at it up until that point, trying to get your fashion brand off the ground?
I had been at it for about 4 years and I had a little success. I was in a bunch of great boutiques, things were selling, but it was really the sensation of like, I'm the only one pushing this,
Yeah.
And I think when we saw a taste of what it looks like to have the bag hit and women just grab onto it and love it. And it's like the wind is now blowing. You're not rowing the boat anymore to get somewhere. It's a great feeling. And I was like, oh, finally, that's what success, or that's what something resonating can feel like.
So I'm really personally curious as to how the starting place, like the journey. So your brother comes in, he finances the business. Y'all get going. You were at it for 4 years. What was there? Was there a pivotal like moment, a turning shift, a design? What happened that took you from struggling for 4 years
Yeah.
to taking off?
So I had just been doing clothing. That was what I was trained in and knew how to do, and was making everything myself. What really took off was I made a bag based on an actress requesting it for a film. I
Okay.
did not know what I was doing. I didn't make the bag. I had it made.
Okay.
And there was this powerful combination of the size and shape of the bag, the price point, what I named it, the morning after bag. And then back when email was still something we wanted and looked forward to every day, there was this incredible company called Daily Candy, and they would write one email a day of the hottest thing that they had found.
Okay.
And that email went out, and it was like wildfire what happened. And I wish today there was something of like that. It doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But it was just this powerful moment of right style, right price, right story, and it flew.
So that email went out. Do you know how many people were on the list that got that email?
I'm sure by that point it was a couple 100,000 women in New York City. It was localized too. It was like, yeah.
And then were you selling your bags primarily still in store, or was it online at that point?
There was no such thing as online,
Oh,
really.
wow.
I mean, this whole direct to consumer website was not really a thing. And so I think for us, we were mostly wholesale. And then if like a Bloomingdale's had a website or a Saks had a
Yeah.
website, um, we would sell on those. But I don't even think they had websites then,
I
if
don't
I'm being
remember. Yeah,
honest.
I can't remember.
So it was really all about these boutiques and then these stores, these big department stores was
So
what the business was.
did that email literally drive people? They went out to find where they could get the bag?
Yeah, so this might have been an LA version of Daily Candy or was a national, I don't remember, but we
Okay.
credited the one store I did sell to, which was in LA. They had bought 12 bags in anticipation of the article coming out. And then they sold out within an hour or so and reordered 75. And then they
Wow.
reordered again and it just kept happening. And then other stores reached out because they read it and it just, it kind of started just from that moment.
So how did you piggyback on that success of that one particular bag? Because I think that's one hit wonders is the story in every industry. And I think that especially as an entrepreneur, I know like once you have something that's successful and you're excited and then you start to go from excited and grateful that it's happening to fearful of like, what about when this stops? What do I do next? How do I keep this going? So I'm curious how you piggybacked on that initial success.
Well, there was some, I don't know, 5 years of time or maybe three where like you could have one product in a bunch of colors and you just iterated on it for
Yeah.
years. And I'll never forget, by then I had a sales agency. They're like, so when are you coming out with your next bag? And I was like, we need to have another bag. Like, I just thought we were going to do this forever. And so the
You were still
second,
doing clothing were you still doing clothing as the main thing still?
by the second year, my brother said, let's just focus on bags. We can always go back to clothing. This thing
Got
is taking a lot of capital, like pick
it.
one.
Okay.
So we shut down clothing and year two was like, okay, we need two bags from you. And it was only, I would say, probably right around when social media came out that the insatiable and e-commerce, the insatiable desire for more, next, new, every day. What's that
Mm,
dopamine hit of
yeah.
something? And so now it's insane what we produce. We probably have 200 styles every month across all categories.
Wow.
And it's just like, I just wish, again, I wish for the one email that would like
Yeah.
sell you out. And I wish like you could have two bags a year and everyone, is looking forward to it. Maybe we'll go back there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, now, but so I mean, to be clear, Rebecca Minkoff, your company, am I right that it's a roughly $100 million company? Is that
It was pre-COVID.
okay?
We lost about 70% of our business during COVID.
Wow.
And we've been building it back on purpose a little bit slower because we want to make sure that everything we do is profitable
Mm,
and has the margin that we want. And if it doesn't achieve that margin, we don't take that order. So it's a lot slower growth, but I'm
yeah.
very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be at over 100 million and not
Yeah.
making money. And I'd rather be half of that and like, okay, we're making a profit.
Yeah. Wow. So at $100 million, which I've been there too, right? Where the business grows so fast that you just start spending money like crazy, feeling like the growth is never going to end. Like this trajectory, we're going to the moon. Let's go. Right.
Yeah, and I think I don't know when you had that type of stick, but I think at the time too, the trend with investors was as long as you're growing 10 to 15% year over year, it doesn't matter if you're not profitable.
Yeah.
And so then you build this model and then you look back, you're like, why? Because if the wind blows another way and suddenly everyone wants you to be a profitable business, which happened to us,
Yeah.
that's a really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people with venture capital funding, right? Like it's just like, oh, we're just taking on more debt and more debt and more debt and more debt because we're just going to grow forever, It is so interesting too, to think about that. Like for, anyone looking at like Rebecca Minkoff, in terms of like fashion designer, $100 million business, like incredible. Then COVID hits and just like, ma and pa stores, right, who were affected. It's almost like when you achieve a certain level of success, like you had, it's like other people would imagine like you're untouchable. And then I'm thinking about the human Rebecca Minkoff. Like, in fact, I'd love to know how stressful was losing 70% of your business. Like, what was it like to go through that time? And what for you, like, what was it like logistically, but what was it like for you personally? What were the struggles? If you're open to being
Yeah.
vulnerable in that way, I'd love to know.
Oh, yeah. So we like a March 13th or 16th, every single department store, good or bad, I understand why they had to cancel their orders. They were shutting their doors, canceled all their orders through the rest of the year. So that's where the 70% in shrinking occurred. Um, the irony is we had already been going through an exercise with, we do need to lean out some team members, and I was like, we had 60 people. I was like, we can't get rid of anyone. This was pre-COVID.
Wow.
Let me tell you, on March 13th, I was like, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. Not that I'm proud of that. But
Yeah.
you suddenly go, if we're going to survive, this
Yeah.
is what we have to do. So the team shrank by half.
Mm.
Everyone got like probably a 10% pay cut. My brother and I took 30% pay cuts. And all of a sudden, every morning was, what did the website do yesterday? Okay. What do we think it's going to do tomorrow? And living day to day, we had a 10 a.m. call every day for up until probably 2 years ago, or no, a year ago. And it was literally this day trading is what we called it. We are day trading today. Today we need to make the minimum we can make is X to cover payroll and not even all of our bills, because we had bills for a much larger company. It was really stressful. And, I say a lot, the easy thing to do would have been to go out of business. We could have ducked under the cover of everyone else going out of business and been like, well, we tried.
Yeah.
Oh, well. The hard thing to do was like, all right, let's give it our all and go down in flames if that's what's going to happen. Like, we owe it to ourselves. We've been in business for 15 years. We owe it to the team we have left. And so we really worked like crazy hard to save the business. And we did. And then we had a new road bump, and then we had to sell the business. And so it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
So you had to sell the business. What was that? And now have you got it back or?
No, I'm a happily paid employee at my company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We ended up selling the business because supply chain issues were rife with many different industries, and we were not affected up until the end of 2021, when every single one of my factories suddenly had 10% of the workforce, and so couldn't make the bags that we had on order.
Oh, wow.
And so, in a season where we should have had 300,000 bags, we got 3,000 bags.
Wow.
Yeah. So our bank got very nervous and said, what are you going to do about this? And we said, well, we should probably find a strategic partner who has the muscle, the relationships, the infrastructure with factories to say, don't put Rebecca Minkoff last, put her first. So we did a transaction in 22 that was basically almost the entirety of the business minus, equity we wanted for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was wild to experience. Like, it's like you survived COVID, and then you're like, oh, great. Now supply chain issues are hitting us. This is awesome.
You can never predict, right? So it's literally like, we can't sell enough bags. Now it's like, we have too many bags that people want to buy and we can't make the bag. Like, if anybody's listening thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur, they might be having second thoughts. They're like, oh my gosh, you have to go through all of this. Like,
I'm very real with entrepreneurs, because I don't want you to think it's always perfect, or there's always like, you have like a couple of dramatic moments. I think, I don't know about you, but there are dramatic moments all the time. I'm currently in one now that I can't talk about. And someone's like, you're so calm. And I'm like, that's because I've been through this like a million times, right? Like, the only thing I know how to do is attempt to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I'm always like, it's a big part of my work, and even in my own just personal, my life is, life's going to do what life's going to do. How do you maintain an optimal mental and emotional state in the midst of all of it and just enjoy every moment, right? To me, like, that's the game that we're playing, is like, enjoy every moment. And it's great. You're like, yeah, I'm not freaking out because I've been there, done that. Like, it is what it is. Yeah. Problems arise, right? Like, but most of us, I think we've been conditioned to think that our external reality and the challenges that we face, right? Like, that's where our emotions are based on. If good things are happening, I feel good. But when bad things happen, I feel bad. And I'm just like, I'm at the whim of what's going on around me,
For
versus like,
sure.
no, I'm going to enjoy every moment of this one life I've been blessed to live.
Yeah.
So you wrote a book called Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. And now you've done a new, updated, and expanded edition, which I can relate to. I did for my Miracle Morning book. After 10 years, I finally did an updated version of my book. So let's start at the beginning. Like, when did you write that book? What was the inspiration for you to actually write a book? You've obviously got a really successful business. You've got a lot of challenges. Like, you've got a lot of your energy, if not most of it's in the business. So when did you write a book? Why did you write a book? And then why'd you update it?
I signed the book deal pre-COVID.
Okay.
With an outline, as you know, as an author.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, they said, do you still want to meet your deadline of October 2020 to turn in? And I said, yeah, because this is going to give me time. I had a framework for, here are the successful things I did 15 years ago that worked. Hold on. There's construction. Let me shut the door.
Okay.
1 second.
No problem. All right, y'all. While Rebecca is shutting the door so you didn't hear the construction, I'm going to talk with her more about. Oh, she's back. Here we go.
I'm back. So I thought to myself, let me see if the same principles I applied to launch my business work when we're basically starting over again.
Yeah.
And so spending those months applying those rules, as I call them, and seeing them work really said, okay, this is something that I now know it's worked twice. And so let me focus on this as sort of the tenets of the book. And then I wanted to come back and write another chapter, sort of 5 years. There's been a lot of change. I've sold the business. I had another baby. I've expanded different facets of my career. And what is something that I could add that I feel like women need? And they need to be talking about money. They need to know how to save money, how to invest money. They need to talk about it instead of coming to a party and saying, here's my kid. How cute is he? It's, what did you invest in recently that paid you good dividends? Do you need life insurance? What are all these conversations that women definitely don't have? And I should have known, been earlier to, or been more educated about younger.
Yeah. How many kids do you have, by the way?
I have 4 kids.
4 kids. What ages?
13, 10, 7, and 2.
Oh, wow. 13. Wow, so that 2-year-old. Wow, that's getting to have the baby life again. That's so fun.
Yeah, it's been great because I don't know about you, but I had 3 kids back to back. And so to have a 5-year gap of the youngest to the baby is like I have 3 babysitters.
That's so funny. That's what I used to joke with my wife, and we ended up we have 2 kids, so, and 12 and 9, 15 and 12. My daughter's 15, my son is 12. But that was always our joke, is I go, let's just adopt before we had kids. I'm like, let's just adopt a 14-year-old, then get pregnant. And that way we have a live-in babysitter. So yeah, we didn't do it that way, but that was always my strategic. I thought that'd be the best approach, but no, that's great for you, right? So you have the baby, but you also have 3 babysitters to where you can have a little space and freedom, I would imagine.
Yeah, like if I'm making lunches or cooking breakfast or taking a shower, I have people that I'm like, watch the baby while this happens.
Even just taking a shower, right? Like just the little stuff around the house.
Little stuff. Yeah.
That's incredible. All right, so back to the book. So the how many rules are there in the book? I'm curious.
Now there's 22.
22. Okay. 22 rules for unlocking creativity, courage, and success. And this book is for who?
I think it's for anyone, man or woman, anyone who is paralyzed by decisions they want to make, changes they want to make. I think that obviously fear is something that our body and our guts are ready, as an emotion or response to what used to be real danger. Yeah. We don't have much real danger in our lives anymore at all. And so the real dangers take the same, like, ooh, should I quit my job and do this? And you get this feeling that you might feel if you're, running from a bear to make that decision, and it stops you and it paralyzes you. So these to me are not rules that help you overcome the fear. It's almost like, yeah, I have it, but I'm going to do it anyways. And that's what I get through in the book is like, trust your gut, is one of the chapters, or reframing failure. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. I talk about burnout in the book and how, we're in this coddled society where you shouldn't work too hard. But what if work was a source of happiness for you? And if
Yeah.
it's not, what's happening in your life that it's not? And what are those big shifts you need to make to change it?
Mm.
So those are just a couple of the subjects that we cover, but I think are relevant for anyone.
Yeah. What comes up for me is like, everything's perspective, right? Work can be super stressful, or a relationship can be super stressful, or parenting, or right, and you just look at it differently. You change your perspective, and you're like, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. Like work's a great example of like either work can be stressful, or you're like, I'm going to enjoy every moment of work. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to make it a game. I'm going to make it fun.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, very cool. So one thing I definitely wanted to ask you about is last year you joined Real Housewives of New York for its 15th season.
Whew,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I've watched clips of you, like and I think that anybody listening, right, Real Housewives, you get like a immediate like, oh, these catty women, and you really held your. I know like the producers had you, they like pushed you a little bit, but you were yourself. Like I thought you were really authentic, and so what was that experience like? So A, how'd you end up on the show, first of all? And then B, what was it like to be on Real Housewives? And are you continuing or are you done?
Someone said to me, "Did you have a lobotomy before you made that decision to do that?"
Nice.
So here's what I looked at when the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
In business, we've always taken risks, whether it
Yeah.
was talking to our customer, which was considered definitely don't do that. Getting on social media, definitely don't do that. Using influencers, our store of the future, our shoppable, QR codes before anyone even understood what that was. Like we've always taken these big risks to get ahead. So I'm not afraid of risk. It was definitely a risk, but I also, in my surveying of everyone I know that watches these shows, is my consumer. And
Totally.
so if I could tighten that connection with her by her
Mm.
getting at the time what I thought was going to be who I really am, and not this edited down mute who
Yeah.
says random things, I was like, this would be great. She'll see another slice of me and it'll form that personal connection that we already been having over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
As a business decision, which I was also criticized for, God forbid, I was like, wow, my name is going to be mentioned once a week for 12 weeks into households all across America. That would be great to help build back the business I almost lost during COVID.
Yeah.
So I had many reasons why I thought it'd be great. I was also pitched a very different show. I was pitched a reboot, which was supposed to be fun and funny with a little bit of drama. And that was mentioned more than a couple times. I genuinely believe they probably thought they wanted that. And then old habits die hard. And, I'm sitting there and it's my first scene and it devolved within maybe 15 minutes into a cat fight. And I was like sitting in a different part. And I said, I could go get involved for airtime.
Yeah.
Or I can sit here and watch because this fight is none of my business.
Yeah.
And be me. And I just committed to being me. And I was punished for it.
Mm.
And so to answer your last question, I'm definitely not going back because it wasn't what I agreed to do. And I'm going to be me. And if I'm penalized for it, that's an energy and values I don't like.
Yeah. 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 If you don't operate from a low level of consciousness, it's hard to fake it, right? Like, because by default, if you're operating higher consciousness, you're not inauthentically going to, right? Like, yeah. So,
I mean, it was just funny because one of the cast members said I was too nice. And I was like, wow, she makes nice sound like a bad thing.
totally.
What are we teaching our daughters?
Yeah.
And she
Totally.
said it multiple times. She's like, she's so nice. It's boring. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
when did that attribute become such a terrible thing?
Yeah. I'd be terrible on a reality show for the same reason. They're like, he's so nice and vanilla and he's like just kind to everyone. It's so boring. It's so bland. That's interesting. What, why don't, like, Rebecca, we need reality shows that are like people doing good things and treating people good. Cause you're right. What are we teaching our society? Like, I think about, like is that reality? And art imitates life, imitates art. And it's so true. You see younger generations, right, modeling the Kardashians and being catty and, so yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But I appreciate that you stayed true to who you are.
Yeah, and I would definitely tell you it's not reality when everyone has an arc and everyone has an editor, and that editor is fitting them into this whatever they think is whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I also had a new perspective for the news and for anyone that's talked about, because the craziest part of this whole thing is a story I would tell that I thought was funny would be twisted by the media to be like weird or salacious.
Yeah.
And even an example, I was speaking at a Mother's Day panel about a lesson my daughter taught me. I think we're getting off topic, but I'll just share.
That's
But like
okay.
a lesson my daughter taught me about being present when I'm with them.
Mm.
And the headline of the article said, Rebecca Minkoff's daughter says she's a terrible mother.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's not what I said. And it was a positive story, but thank you. So it
Yeah.
was just like to watch that happen. I was like, oh, I will never believe a headline about anyone ever again, because
Good
this
for
was being
you.
written about me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it is interesting, people that they believe every headline and they believe the news, and it's like, and it's all propaganda, all of it. It's all because it's all the story that they want to get across, or the one they think will get the most clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. I like you even more. Uh, what would you tell someone today, as you have become so successful in business and you've ridden the ups and the downs and all of it? If somebody listening wants to start a business, what would you tell them? And on top of the general answer, like if it's specific to being a fashion business, if there's any like advice that differs in that regard.
Yeah. So first I would say that you have to love what you do so much that you need to think through all the terrible things that could happen, or ask someone about all the terrible things, and ask yourself if you have the stomach to go to work each day after being slapped with that particular issue.
Yeah.
And then I would say that we are in this day and age where everything that we want almost can be clicked on our phone to arrive or pick us up.
Yeah.
And you have to change your expectations and your time horizon if you want to achieve success. Is it 5, 10, 20 years to get to where you think some people might go in a year or two?
Yeah.
And make decisions on the long-term scale, because you'll make very different ones. And then last but not least, not everyone needs to be $1 billion company or $100 million company. You know, there used to be a day and age back in probably 1950 where people had businesses that afforded them a good lifestyle, and they had more balance in their lives than I would say we have now.
Yeah.
And so what is wrong with a profitable, smaller, slower growing business that provides for you and your family and a life that you want? Or work yourself like a dog, raise a bunch of money, never see your family for maybe this payout that doesn't come, or does. And by then you're so bitter, you're just like, great, thanks a lot.
Yeah. And you're like, and I wasted my best years trying to achieve this thing that, you know, it's like that fisherman, you know, the fisherman parable where the business person goes to the island. Have you heard that?
No.
Anyway, I would butcher it, so I won't mess it up. But the short of it is, business person goes to an island, sees a fisherman, and says, "Hey, I can help you scale this business." The fisherman goes, "Okay, what does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, what's your days like now?" He goes, "I fish a little in the morning, then I siesta with my wife, then I spend time with my kids, then I spend time with my friends, and then I go to bed and I do it again." He goes, "Well, we can move your operation offshore. We can get you multiple boats. We can, you know, on and on and on." And it's like, and then what happened? The fisherman goes, "Then what happens?" He goes, "Then we can get investors. And then what happens? Then 20 years from now, you can sleep in late, siesta with your wife, play with your kids, and then hang out with your friends." He's like, "That's what I do now," you know?
Right.
And so
Exactly.
it's just this reminder of like, what are we doing it for, you know?
Exactly.
And it sounds like, you know, I would imagine your kids, right? That's your world. Well, in fact, on that note, what do you want your legacy to be? Like you did build the $100 million company. You did the thing that less than 1/10% of people do. And now looking back, having done it, what matters to you, and what do you want your legacy to be?
I think what I define success today is not just time, but mental. Where am I mentally? So if I'm with my kids, am I able to be present? And if I am, to me, that's successful. Or, you know, that I talk about the first three. The evening routine would be like something I was like dreading / can we hurry this up because I have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And now to be like, let's do bath time. Now you want to read a book? Let's read a book. Like the fact that I have that ability to just do that and there's no fires and I don't need to respond to any emergency situations is like, that to me is ultimate success.
That's great. So from being the business owner to now working for the business that you started, like it's a much better lifestyle. It sounds like much
It's
more.
great. I mean, there are lots of issues, but guess
Yeah.
what? They're not my problems anymore.
Yeah. Amen to that. That's amazing. So the book is Fearless. I want to make sure we highlight this because I know that you just you added the new chapter, you added the new content on making money, managing money, investing money, all of that. Where is the best place for people to get the book and to follow you and keep learning from you?
You can get the book wherever books are sold. Amazon is probably the easiest, but it's available at Barnes & Noble, Target. I'm going to be doing a couple more book events in LA on March 28th. So follow me at Becky Minkoff if you want a slice of me and my personal life and the real Rebecca, not the edited one. And follow at Rebecca Minkoff for a lot of brand, but also me. And you'll get all the, you can click the links and follow through to buy the book or listen to my podcast too.
Oh, what's your podcast? Is it the Rebecca Minkoff podcast?
It's called Super Women with Rebecca Minkoff, and I started it in 2018. And it's really about taking women. Sorry, you don't qualify, Hal. Women who've seemingly achieved again the dream, but really going through their failures, how they overcame them, and sort of taking the varnish off a little bit and saying, this is someone you really admired and look what she had to go through to do this, and the hard work involved. So
amazing. So that's Super Women.
Yeah, Super Women with Rebecca Minkoff. Yeah.
And did you say that your personal podcast, or I'm sorry, your personal social media is at Becky Minkoff?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, I'm so grateful that we got connected. I just admire you. I have a lot of appreciation and love for you. And I'm so grateful that we got to do this today.
Well, thank you for having me, Hal.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. The book is Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Go grab a copy and it will help you to overcome your fears and do the things you're afraid of to achieve the life, the success, and the fulfillment that you just heard from Rebecca Minkoff today. Love you all, and I'll talk to you next week.